Driven, RE/MAX Hallmark's real estate show, with your hosts, Johnder, Perez, and Dan Salhany.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Driven Real Estate Show by RE/MAX Hallmark. Today we have a fantastic guest from our RE/MAX Hallmark Bayview Village office. He started in real estate at a very young age. And in fact, before he got his real estate license, he bought his first investment condo at the very young age of 18. And so he studied business management while in university. And while he was studying, he was getting his real estate license. Once he did get his real estate license, he was working part-time in the beginning in this hospitality industry while trading in real estate. In the first 5 years of his business, he had a little bit of challenges, but on the fifth year mark, he made a total transition, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Within that 5 years after that 5-year mark, he has tripled his income. He's able to become a partner of the team that he originally joined as a team member of, and he's been able to achieve the Platinum Club Award. Let's welcome Justin Chang. Welcome, Justin.
Welcome, Justin. Glad to be
Guys,
here.
thanks for having me.
Justin, let's just jump right into it. Dan and I are going to be asking you a whole bunch of questions, and of course we have our viewers as well who's going to be asking us questions. But Justin, what is the secret to your success?
Oh man, I think to be honest, it's just keeping positive, staying hungry and ambitious, and just surrounding yourself with a great team. And just, you want to keep your circle with people who are going to move you forward.
Absolutely.
That's pretty much, I'm all about, just being positive all the time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's carried you out through your pretty much almost 10-year real estate career. You started at the young age of 21 years old.
That's right, yeah.
So Justin, take us into this journey. So you started, you were taking your licensing while you were in university. You got licensed, you're working part-time. What were you doing part-time in the hospitality industry?
Yes, so I was working at Baton Rouge since I was 18. So I was in the hospitality industry. I was doing bartending and serving there. And then at 21, I got my real estate license. I continued to work at Baton Rouge as I was selling real estate. In year 3 of my real estate career, I got a third job at the Rogers Center. So I was serving beer at the Rogers Center. Up until year 5 of my real estate career, I kind of dumped my side jobs and I jumped 2 feet into real estate, and that's when I joined Ravi and RE/MAX Hallmark.
Fantastic. So let's talk about that 5-year mark in your career. So you were slowly, before you transitioned, something happened while you were in that 5-year mark. So tell us a little bit about what happened. What led to the journey of you discovering Ravi and his team, and then describe for us how you transitioned to RE/MAX Hallmark.
Yeah, so I joined a little small brokerage in Markham called Markham Center Realty in the beginning. The broker of record was actually my mom's friend, so that's a reason why I joined them. And it was really attractive for a new agent because they had little desk fees and the splits were very fair. So she was a very good broker of record, and she guided me for what I needed. But unfortunately, in my year 3, she got hit by a car. She broke her leg. And then she wasn't able to, go to the office anymore. So I didn't really have the support that I needed. So I was kind of flirting with the idea of joining sort of a bigger brokerage. The way I looked at it, I was kind of in a D league with a small boutique brokerage, and then I wanted to play in the NBA, which is joining the bigger brokerages. So I started interviewing. I interviewed Keller Williams referred on King Street. That was my first stop. I had a great conversation with Jamie. I was ready to sign. And then the day before I signed, a friend of mine named Alicia, she was like, my family friend, he's doing great in real estate and he's looking to expand his team. And I think you guys would have a very good relationship if you guys join. So I said, okay, it's worth a conversation. So I called Ravi and I interviewed him, I believe, the next day. And then me and Ravi, to be honest, we talked for probably about 2 hours, and it almost didn't feel like an interview because we had so much in common, and then we kind of discovered that we have a lot of overlaying people in the same circle. So I did my due diligence after I interviewed Rav. I asked my friends in Hallmark if they knew who Ravi was. My cousin was a club promoter with him back in the day, so I asked my cousin how Rav was. Everybody had nothing but great things to say about him. And, you know, me and Ravi, we just have a good chemistry. His business was where I wanted my business to be in 5 years' time. So with all those things into consideration, I decided to make the jump and join Remax Hallmark and Rav.
Fantastic. And so you made that switch, but let's rewind a bit, because when we were talking about your background in sales, you shared with us a very interesting story. And so your first sales job wasn't really in real estate sales, was it?
Oh man, no, it wasn't. So actually, I think my dad's on this right now, so he's gonna find this story kind of funny. So he used to pack me 3 big old chicken fingers for lunch every day in grade 6, to a point where I just got sick of it and I decided I just didn't want to eat them no more. So I would sell them to kids in my class for like $2. And then if they didn't pay me, I would say, you know what, tomorrow you owe me $4. And then if they didn't pay me, tomorrow you owe me $6. So it went on and on like that. And I didn't realize what I was doing was not very ethical, but I was a young kid and I just wanted to make money somehow. So that's kind of where my sales career started.
Right. And so you talked about getting into sales, essentially entrepreneurship at such a young age. And so what do you think that had to do with as far as your development into who you are as in real estate sales today?
Well, I mean, I think it was just there. Like if I wanted it, I went to go get it. So it really taught me the mentality of being a go-getter. And to be honest, when I was young, I didn't really realize, like, you know, I was actually being an entrepreneur. I was just trying to make some money so I could buy a can of pop in a vending machine.
Absolutely.
So that's really it. It just taught me to drive, and it taught me that I can do it on my own if I really wanted to. I don't need a boss telling me that, you know, what to do to make money. I can actually go do it if I wanted to.
Right.
This is pretty funny. I'm actually just reading, and I think it's your dad's comment here where he says, haha, hustling with chicken fingers at a
Oh, those are my
entry.
sisters. They know my story. My story goes, it went from hustling the chicken fingers to in high school, I would lend money out for lunch to kids, and I would have that same concept of interest. And I didn't really realize that, you know, what I was doing wasn't really the right thing, but I was just trying to make money at the time.
So interesting enough that, you know, at a very young age, you know, you had already developed the concept of leverage and leveraging your position, and you know, that you had an asset and you had a buyer and so forth. But nonetheless, I just wanted to rewind to something. So Johnder touched on the fact that you had been in real estate working for another brokerage for about 5 years before, you know, circumstance, I guess, you know, for whatever reason, whether it was coincidental or meant to be, with the other brokerage, caused you to start looking outside. That's right. as to what you wanted to do and that you wanted to grow and so forth. But you were an independent realtor working for that other brokerage, and you know, based on the numbers that you shared with Johnder and I yesterday, as a young guy, you were actually doing pretty good. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how is it that you know, what was the mindset? Because I know for many of us, and this is certainly not to suggest that everybody looks at this path, but you know, I think as realtors, we restrict ourselves. And, you know, I've been doing this for a really long time, for 32 years. And, you know, the team concept back then never really existed. And I think it's a fabulous thing. So here you are, single agent, 5 years into the business, and all of a sudden you start looking for a team.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be honest with you, the initial thought was not to go join a team when I wanted to move brokerages. I mean, it wasn't out of the question, but it wasn't my initial plan to go join a team, because I was going to join Keller Williams as an independent salesperson as well, right? But I'm a big believer in collaboration. I bought my first condo with my mom's friends. There was 5 of us. Then at 21, I bought another condo with 2 of my business partners who are now still my business partners. So I always had that mentality that the more people involved, we can achieve more. So that's why I didn't completely X the idea of joining a team. And when I met Ravi, we kind of had the same sort of mentality and we had the same kind of goals. And I felt like, sure, I could try to make $1 million on my own, but why not try to make $10 million with a great team? So I think I was just pretty much looking at a big picture. I didn't want to kind of close that door of being on a team, but I'm just very fortunate that everything kind of played out the way it did. I met Ravi. Fortunately, if it was one day later, I would have signed with Keller Williams.
So Justin, give us a snapshot of the first 12 months. You've now decided to come up over to Remax Hallmark. You've met with Ravi. Were you all in right away?
I was all in. So as I said, I quit both of my serving jobs because I thought, yeah, I can make 80, 90,000 in real estate and maybe whatever, 40, 50,000 serving, or I can just put my 110% effort into real estate and have fun while I try to make a little bit more money, right? So that's what it was. My first 12 months, you know, me and Rav, we worked very close together. Me and Alicia, we got introduced and we formed a great relationship. And we just worked. We grinded hard in the first 12 months. We rebranded the name from the Ravi Singh team to the Connexus Group. And that's when the Connexus Group was born.
So tell us about the Connexus Group a little bit. And I'm going to go back to one of my questions, but you gave us a little bit of insight as to what Connexus means and how you came up with the process. And I think you actually had a third party.
Yeah. So when we came on, when I came on, Rav was like, you know what, maybe we should change the name to a more generic name versus the Ravi Singh team. Otherwise, if people want to use us, they may only be looking for Ravi Singh. So I had a friend who is a branding kind of consultant. We met up with her. Her name is Bianca. She kind of interviewed us, you know, just trying to figure out what our culture of our team is going to be. And then, you know, through a long process, she gave us a few options. And the name Connexus really stood out to us because it's a mixture of 3 words. We connect you to your nexus, which is your home, and that is the next stage of the process. So that is kind of the basis of the name Connexus Group.
So a philosophy was built by creating a generic brand that would represent everybody that was involved in the unit, in the family unit or the business unit or whatever you want to call it.
Exactly.
So here you are, you're with Ravi. So I'm going to forget about the first 5 years of real estate because I think those first 5 years you were kind of just flying under the radar. You were doing a couple of other jobs. I don't think you were all in. So now you're all in. And what would you say was the biggest challenge for you starting off at year 5? You've created these habits, some of them good, some of them bad, and now you're into a totally different realm. So give us an idea what the challenges you had and how did you overcome them?
I mean, to be honest, obviously there was challenges with deals and stuff like that, but even in the first 5 years, there was challenges with deals. But I'm very fortunate, like, I haven't gone through such big challenges with being with Connexus Group, just because we are very team oriented, and any problems we have, we can bounce off each other. So that really helps. I mean, a challenge, I guess I could say, is just being accountable for other people, right? You know, other people hold me accountable, I hold other people accountable, and that's just how a team is supposed to work. I don't know if it was a tough challenge, but it's just something that was different than what I was used to in my previous 5 years.
So that's fantastic. And we have a question actually, which ties in perfectly to what you were talking about, because we talk about, and Ravi said, it's, you know, collaborative excellence. So it's a team effort. Connexus, the very word or the very term of it also signifies, I guess, interconnectivity, right? So yeah. You're very young. So this is a question from Mary. You're very successful at such a young age. And now when we look at the real estate industry, we typically see multi-generational. So right now, I mean, as a millennial, we see you dealing with a lot more of the younger generation of the market. But what would you say would be a way for a realtor to be successful, no matter how old they are, to be successful at dealing with any particular person from any age, particularly, I guess,
Millennials?
Yeah.
I mean, I think with millennials, you just have to be very patient. Sometimes I have to take a step back and just, when I'm speaking to somebody who's new to the process, I have to take a step back and really understand that, you know, they don't know what's going on. They don't know what step one is. So you just kind of have to be patient and be very thorough with your explanations and kind of guide, literally handhold them through the whole process. Because I think that's very important, because some people don't even know when, like, what a condition is, right? So something like that, you just have to be patient, explain to them very thoroughly. And if they don't understand, explain to them over and over and over again. So my advice is just to be patient and don't get frustrated with what people may think are stupid questions.
Well, here's one of the interesting things that you mentioned in our chat yesterday as well, is that we all get a perception of what a typical salesperson might do, right? And of course, there's the proverbial used car salesman, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. And then when you look at Justin, when Justin and I have known each other for many years, he's the most easygoing guy. I've never seen him not smiling. He's, you know, you probably meet him as a complete stranger and he'd probably be a friend of yours within a minute. So Justin, exactly what you're describing about working with millennials, you don't seem like the person that would, you know, pressure somebody into doing something, or, you know, like being very forceful or very, you know, pushy. So would you say that contributed to part of how you're running your business successfully, just the demeanor you are? And maybe describe how you are, like for those that have never met you.
Yeah, I think I made a vow to myself in the beginning of my real estate career that I'll never be that salesy type of realtor. You know, so I base my business on relationships, not transactions. So I'm all about building relationships, you know, making clients friends, and just being patient with them and listening to them. It's all about listening to your clients, understanding their needs, and if there's some sort of miscommunication, you just have to get to the bottom of it. So I'm all about just being an advisor versus being a salesperson.
Which is a very good distinction, because as an advisor, you're helping somebody out versus when you're, I mean, obviously at the end of the day, you've got to sell something. Yeah. And you mentioned the challenging, like using the word or term challenge, you know, which came from
that's right.
Sale. And yet your approach is totally different. And for those of us looking at your results in terms of your sales success, you look at, you know, you're doing very successfully. Meanwhile, you're very easygoing as far as your demeanor is concerned, but you're listening to your clients, and you're using more of a like an approachable style of.
Yeah, so I mean, my kind of strategy when it comes to sales is I want to lay out all the different scenarios for my clients and let them choose the one that makes them the most comfortable. The one thing I always say to my clients, every single client before we sign any offer, is my number one concern is just to make sure that you're comfortable with what you're buying or comfortable with what you're leasing. That is my go-to line, and it makes people feel like I'm really working for their best interest. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way I've been working. Like I've been very fortunate that it's turned out very well for me. But yeah, I continue to say that I'm going to continue to work like this. I will never become the salesy, forceful salesman. And I think it's working for me. So I'll keep doing it.
So we've got a question here, Justin, and I know in our conversation yesterday, you mentioned in a very short window, you've had 4 recent transactions.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, we're all facing this pandemic, and being able to trade during this time and to obviously do things in a safer manner, which has created some restrictions at the same time. So we've got a question here of what advice would you have for first-time homebuyers? So in today's market during the pandemic, what are the trends you see with housing prices and the market impact on, I'm going to assume it's by this pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, pandemic kind of caught everybody off guard. Not to say that real estate isn't moving. Listings were down, but also buyers were down as well. But I do think there's a small little window here where first-time home buyers can get in without getting into crazy competition like we saw in January and February. I'm not sure when it will get hotter or when it will get a little bit more competitive, but the way I look at it, the sooner that governments lift restrictions off of certain businesses and people are more comfortable with going out, that's when the market will sort of get a little bit more saturated and we will become more towards a seller's market again, like January and February. So right now, like I'm working with a couple of first-time home buyers and I'm advising them to let's try to buy something within the next 30 to 45 days because who knows when the government restrictions are lifted, we may be competing against 13, 14 offers versus 3 or 4 offers that we may have to deal with as of right now. So I would say, yeah, like for first-time home buyers, let's try to shop right now just to avoid the competition.
Great, thank you. So interesting, 5 years, and if you don't mind me sharing, I mean, we know where you're at now in your platinum status, but you went from a point of earning X number of dollars and your income in 5 years has tripled.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hey, you're a nice guy, you got a good personality, whatever. It's pretty tough to triple your business in a 5-year period of time, unless you're doing activities and doing things that are performance-based and that kind of idea. So can you give us an idea of what Justin's day looks like and, you know, what's driving you and so forth?
Okay, well, to be honest, I sleep until pretty late, 9:30 I get up. Right away I get on my computer, I check my emails. I do my daily scrubs on the MLS. I have my list of buyers in a list, what they're looking for. So I scrub MLS every day, seeing if there's any new listings that I can send to people. And then after that, sometimes I'll go to the office or sometimes I'll leave for an appointment, showings or whatever. I usually like to go to the office. I mean, Alicia's there and it kind of gives me that environment to make me feel like, you know, I want to get working, you know? So that helps a lot when I go to the office. But what we do a lot of the times, we set up meetings where we host client events. And client events are our biggest drivers, I guess, of our business because we focus a lot of our attention to our lifetime referral system. So with our client events, that's when we can bring all of our circles together. They can see what we do. And fortunately, it leads to business. That's kind of our biggest lead generation that we do versus, you know, the traditional cold calling or door knocking or open house, I guess you can say. But yeah, that's what I do. And even sometimes if I have buyers who are on the simmer, who are not really hot looking to buy right now, I still send them some stuff here and there. Just say, oh, I know you're not on the market, but I rolled across this listing. I thought you may be interested. And sometimes when you do that, it may trigger like a spidey sense in their head saying, oh, you know what? This is on the market. Maybe I should get back on the market again. So that's what I do. And I like to have lunch meetings with friends, coffee meetings with friends. Just socializing is kind of how I generate my leads.
So interesting. Knowing that you've done the transactions that you've completed during COVID, you know, it's a pretty significant amount of business. And you said something yesterday, and I think it's that you started off with X number of buyers just before COVID. Yeah. And then that pool, and I'll let you just maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So pre-COVID, I was probably working with about 12 buyers. And then once the state of emergency was announced on March 16th, I would say 60 to 65% of my buyers started to say, you know, I want to sit on the sidelines and wait to see what happens. And I completely understand. So I'm like, okay, cool. Just let me know when you're ready to get back on the horse and we can go again. But I mean, during the whole COVID, you know, I still was setting up my daily emails. People were still getting my emails. And it just led to people still being interested. And that's what happened. I mean, I'm very fortunate. Even 3 weeks ago, a lot of my buyers came back onto the market.
I think what I get from our conversations is that you've developed whatever it is, whatever that system might be, and maybe we'll get a little deeper into that. That it sounds like 60 days ago or whatever it is, you had an abundance of opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what's carried you through. And one of the things as a management team and leadership team is that, is to have so many different funnels feeding into your business that if something were to happen, or if one fell off or two fell off or 60% fell off, you'd still have something to carry you through. And that in all my years in real estate has been the key to making sure that you have an abundance of opportunity. So good for you for capitalizing on that, Johnder.
Absolutely. So let's take a look at this a little bit further, because we have a comment from Karen, actually. She says, platinum status and wake up at 9:30. Right? Well, I mean, at the same time, we have a lot of guests on this show. Some of them wake up very early, some of them wake up a bit later. And what we've discovered is, to each their own. What works for you may not work for somebody else. What works for somebody else may not work for you. And an important thing that you said earlier was that, you didn't really, I don't know if you've ever done cold calling or door knocking, but that sort of prospecting model didn't work for your business. And the way you've systemized your business has allowed you to have 12 buyers before COVID and then 4 deals just last week, right? So why don't we dig a little bit deeper into this? So Justin, you talked to us about how early on you were in sales from the ripe young age of being in business. You developed your business acumen, taking business management in Ryerson, and then you bought into the team, the Connexus group with Ravi. So why don't you take to us why don't we dig deep into discovering how systematic are you? Because as Dan said, you're a nice guy. You seem very easygoing. What's going on in here as far as how do you design the business systems? Of course, with Ravi's help for the team, but even for your own personal business. So for all the realtors, Hallmarkers listening to this, how do we design a system that gives us a kind of result where we have an abundance of clients ready to work with us, such that, even if a global pandemic as extreme as this has happened, we still have opportunities and we still have a way to thrive? Why don't you take us into that a little bit?
Well, to be honest, like by nature, I'm not very a structured guy. I'm not very good at systems, which is why being with Rav and Alicia, Sabrina, and Ashley, they really helped me become structured. And we have team jam sessions every week where Rav leads the meeting and he makes us accountable. He tells us what we have to do, and we track our new business, we track our warm leads, we track our simmer leads. So that's kind of how I kind of keep my structure, is my team. I give all the credit to my team for keeping me in line and in structure. Right. Otherwise, when I was on my own, it wasn't like that. Like, I could wake up at 12 noon and it wouldn't make a difference to me. Like, so there was no structure back then.
It'd be fair to say then that because you joined the team, you became structured, but as a result of that, you were able to create that structure, build it in as part of your own personal, and as for, of course, a team system.
Exactly. We practiced it as a team, and now it's kind of guided me to become like that by nature.
Mm-hmm. And then eventually, once you discover something that does work, whether it's through your team's administration or through yourself or through Ravi, do you systemize it? And how do you document your processes, or how do you create something that can be replicated, and so that you can be successful?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's something I still need to improve on. But what I do that I feel like really does help me out. I literally just write everything down on paper. Every single client that I talk to, or every single person that I talk to about real estate, I try to write it down and just keep being reminded of who I should be focusing on all the time. So that's kind of one way. It's not very formal by all means, but that's just the way I like to work. I like to write things down, and it makes me feel that I can actually make it come into fruition after I keep reading it constantly, repeatedly,
Yeah, so it sounds like you have a very good systematic process in order for you to be able to take care of your clients. do you find that you have return clients? So uh, I'm sure you've built up, and Connexus has built up such a massive business as far as keeping clients happy. Do you have clients that do return? And how do you manage the client relationship? And this is a question from Karen actually. How do you manage that client relationship after the deal has closed?
Oh, well, this is the thing. A lot of my clients are my friends, and a lot of realtors, they stray away from that kind of idea of, oh, I don't want to work with my friends because I don't want to mix business with pleasure. I never thought about it like that. I like to represent my friends because I want to know my friends are getting great representation.
Mhm.
So with that side, like my friends are my friends. I talk to them all the time, and we just keep a close relationship regardless. I'm the type of person who, if I'm in somebody's area, I'll go drop by and say hi, or I'll make a call and say, hey, what are you doing? I'll come by. So I build my relationship just by keeping up with them and just being very humble and very authentic when it comes to reaching out to them again.
Right. And then we have a question from Amanda. What advice do you have to aspiring real estate investors? So from my understanding, you started investing very young, and of course you've got business partners now that you invest with, and I'm sure a lot of them are probably your friends. What advice do you have to give to aspiring real estate investors who want to jump into the market, but necessarily live in the property? Like I guess they don't necessarily want to live in the property.
Well, man, my advice would be, partner up if you can.
Mhm.
If you partner up, you could achieve things faster and you can achieve more. That was my mentality from the very get-go. I mean, otherwise, you save enough money to invest on your own, and that's great. But if you partner up, you can kind of expedite that process a little bit faster.
It's interesting. I was just looking at the chat here, and Ravi made a comment a little earlier on about door knocking, and he says, "We door knocked one time. We tried it." And then he makes another comment down here, and we appreciate Ravi being here because obviously you guys work very closely with one another. But Ravi's theory and simple, consistent, and effective, very good, not distracted with tools. So I think it's about, I think what you found is you found your niche of what works for you and what allows you guys to get, to propel yourselves. And everybody's got a different. That's the beauty of it, right? Like, for those of us, and we've all got, most of you know what the disc profiling is. So we've all got a different personality type.
That's right.
And everybody requires something different to help them get in front of those consumers and get those opportunities. So, it's not always about the tools, although I believe that, for some, it's a mixture of both. For some, it's one way. For some, it's all tools where they're just, lead generators, and so forth and so forth. So, fast forward now, like you're a pretty motivated guy. You're a young guy. 10 years into the business, what's keeping you going? What's keeping you motivated? What's in here?
Well, my team is actually what's keeping me motivated. That's the biggest thing. I mean, we have a lot to achieve, and we are getting there. And it's very rewarding to see all of us, being successful in reaching our goals. And I think that's what really drives me. I don't want to disappoint my team, and we want to reach our goal. I've had a big picture. Like when I decided to talk to Ravi about buying into the team, I said, Rav, do you want to make this a $2 million team, or do you want to make this a $15 million team? Because I want to aim for 15, right? So I set my goals pretty high, but at the same time, if I fall short and I make $10 million, I'll be happy too.
I think it's really admirable. As you know, realtors in general have a certain DNA, a certain something, we'll call it maybe a little bit of an ego, right? And that's why we're not scared to be out in the public. That's why we're not scared to come on to Zoom. We're not scared to sit in front of a consumer and talk to them about their biggest asset. There's a confidence thing. Sorry, I'll shift that. I'll shift it from ego to confidence. So good on you for, acknowledging and taking the opportunity to see that leveraging yourself, and whether that's through a team and good for the 31 people that are on this call as well, because you are leveraging yourself, right? You're extending your ability to gain some knowledge by listening to one of your peers. So whether that's in a partnership arrangement or just in an individual arrangement, where you're taking courses and you're making yourself better, you found something that works for you. So good on you. I think Johnder wanted to just ask one last thing, and then we'll go into a Q&A session with everybody. And there's some great questions that have been going on here, and we really appreciate all the input that's been happening in the chat box. So that's amazing.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have any questions, feel free. We do have a live Q&A happening. So type it into the chat box if you haven't had a chance to already. But Justin, you've shared with us such an amazing journey, and I'm sure everybody will agree with me that you've got such vibrant, positive energy. I can't help but smile just listening to you and seeing you. But you took us through challenges, and of course, when we look at other, when we look at other realtors, real estate agents, we see the success, and we can say, okay, Justin's achieved Platinum Club, but we don't necessarily see everything that has gone through actually achieving that. Not only the good stuff, but even the challenges, right? And so right now we're in a very big, we're in a situation where we have a global pandemic happening. There's a lot of restrictions as to how we're practicing business. There's a lot of confusion as to how, the market's going to be doing. I mean, even though we see positive signs in the marketplace, there's certainly not a quick return to normal, if you will. There's going to be adjustments coming up. And yet you and your team, you're able to thrive. So for all the hallmarkers, all of the realtors, and anybody listening to this for business advice, what advice would you give them to stay positive and to just keep on going, no matter what's happening around us?
Hey man, the thing that really got me through this whole thing is, scrolling through Instagram. It doesn't matter what country you're in, doesn't matter how rich you are, doesn't matter what status you are, if you're a celebrity or not celebrity, everybody's talking about self-isolation, about wearing the mask, everything. So knowing that I'm not in this alone was very helpful for me. Being there for your clients, calling them, asking them how they're doing. I did a food drive where we donated a whole bunch of food to the Markham Fire Hall. So just putting good out to the universe during times like this, I think you will be rewarded at the end of it. And just keep staying positive and make sure that the people who you care about know that you are still there for them, even during this crazy time.
Absolutely. It sounds like very, very, very humble, very noble advice. Is just look after everybody, look after each other. And the greatest thing about this, at the end of the day, we're all family, we're all a community.
Sounds like if anybody here is having a bad day, Justin's going to leave his contact information, and you can give him a quick call, and I think he'll turn whatever's going on backwards. And you know what? That's key, though, Justin. And I think it's about the people that you surround yourself with, and the people that are there for you on a daily basis. And I know Ravi. I don't know him super well, but I know that the people. There's a persona about him and so forth. And I think that that's a responsibility for all of us, as because this can be a lonely business sometimes.
Of course.
And it's to find those outlets that bring you back up. So I'm going to call you next week.
Anytime, buddy. That's the thing. Like, we try to build our whole network. We build our whole thing. We try to build a community. And in times like this is how you have to support your community and let them know that you are there for them. And
Absolutely.
It will come back to you at the end,
Absolutely, Justin. Thank you. And speaking of sharing your phone number, why don't you, before we get into our live Q&A, why don't you share with us how anybody listening to this, whether it's a fellow Hallmarker, somebody who wants to send you a referral, somebody who wants to hear your voice so that they can smile, realtors who are want to connect with you, how do they connect with you and with Connexus Group? Maybe your phone number, website, email, social media, all that stuff.
Yep, sounds good.
So there's a question here from Ravi.
So to connect with Justin at connexusgroup.ca, and his phone number is 647-408-3987. We'll include it in the show notes as well. And social media at Connexus Group. I'm sure that's Instagram and wherever else you guys are social presences. So go ahead, Dan, you might want to ask Ravi.
Yeah, so Ravi had a question here. What advice would you give to a novice real estate investor? That's number one question.
What advice would I give a novice real estate investor?
Yeah, somebody brand new looking. I mean, you bought your first property when you were not quite 20 years old, right?
Yeah. So, I guess it kind of goes on to Amanda's question, whereas, what advice would I give an investor? I would say, you partner up with somebody who you can feel you can have a good business relationship with. Like when I started my first investment in real estate, I only had $10,000, and the condo we purchased was $250,000. So 5 of us gave $10,000 to make it happen, and it could be something as simple as that. That's how you get your foot through the door, and it just snowballs. So I went from my 1 condo, now I'm on my 5th condo. So it all kind of snowballed from that kind of mentality.
Right.
So I would say collaborate is a great way to do it.
So you're an agent making $80,000-$90,000 a year, and you want to make $250,000
or more.
Stay
or
hungry.
more.
Stay hungry. Don't let the discouragement stop you from staying hungry and keep your ambition going. I mean, for me, it was surrounding myself with great agents, surrounding myself with great colleagues, great leadership. I mean, just being in Hallmark itself. I mean, there's so many great agents in this company, so many top producers, that I almost have an internal competition within myself that, I want to be with these top agents. If I'm in Hallmark, I want to be able to fit in with these top agents. So surrounding yourself by success will really help you get to where you want to be.
Absolutely. So it's that environment, right? So
it's the environment, yes.
We bring it back as, part of the behind the scenes that nobody gets to see is Dan and I try to figure out with Justin, what are we going to call this show? And what was your,
well, interesting. I think Justin's a very good listener. That seemed to be the first thing I asked him. He says, you know what, I just listen really, really well. And so I gave it 2 ears, 1 mouth, the specialist. That was the name. And you know what? That's key, right? That is key, because it is a fact that the better that you listen to your consumer and their wants and their needs, and you're actually true and compassionate about what they want, it's going to resonate, and it's going to showcase what you bring to the table and the value that they bring, because there's so many realtors, right?
That's right.
It's about being empathetic, and it's about being just being real.
Being authentic is my biggest strength, I think. And I think that's how everybody should be. Nobody should be putting on a fake face to get any sort of business.
So we have a question from John, and he says, by the way, thank you for being my realtor. So I guess he's one of your clients.
Yeah, that's my good cousin that used to work with Ravi.
Well, there you go. So what is your take on real estate in the next year while the world figures out COVID? I'm reading a lot on the news that it's the best time to buy.
Like I said, nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows what's going to happen with this real estate market. But I think that with this pandemic going on, a lot of people are going to be skeptical. So there are going to be deals out there. I wouldn't say they're everywhere, but you can find a couple of deals here and there. I mean, during the COVID time, we had some examples of where you can get something for well under market value at the time, just because sellers were in a pickle and not many buyers were on the market. But as I said, with government restrictions lifted, I think a lot of people are going to come back onto the market. I don't necessarily think it's going to lead to a 2017 repeat, nor will it lead to a 2020 January and February, but I do think it's going to rebound, from the last 2 months that we did have.
I think that's a really great outlook, and I would have to agree with you. And in all markets, whether they're good or bad, there's opportunity. And I mean, for you to do X number of transactions in the last 30, 45 days is just a testament that if you want it, it's out there. You got to be that person that wants it more than the next person.
Exactly. And what I always said about this COVID thing, like, you know, the government was doing a great job assisting everybody during this time, you know, giving the CERB fund to people who got laid off. So people were not panicking about defaulting on their mortgage just yet because they are getting government assistance. But I was telling everybody that, you know, if this goes on for another 4 or 5 months where the CERB fund kind of runs dry, then people are not going to have that supplementary income. Then people are going to start worrying about paying their mortgage. Then they're going to start thinking about putting their house on the market and then getting a fire sale. So I think if that was the case, then for sure we would have seen more opportunities and we would have seen prices drop. But because, I mean, I think the government is lifting things faster than people anticipated, I'm not sure if that's going to be the case anymore.
And so I think it's a lot about observing what's happening right now, listening to what our clients need, and just making sure that we're ultimately, as Justin said, I mean, just make sure we're taking care of them and taking care of our community as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't think we have any other questions here, Johnder. So
anything else you'd like to share with us, Justin, before we wrap up our conversation for today?
No, but I want to thank all of you guys for attending. This was actually pretty fun. Like I'm not a big video guy, and like that's what everybody tells me I need to get on. But I just get nervous in front of the camera. But this is actually pretty calm, pretty easy. So I'm very thankful that you guys asked me to do this.
that was
You know what? It's our absolute pleasure for you to join us. So thank you so much, Justin. And for those of you watching, thank you so much for joining in on the conversation on the Driven Real Estate Show by RE/MAX Hallmark. Stay tuned. This will be, Justin will be a video star after this because this will be forever put up on our YouTube channel, www.remaxhallmarkdriven.com. And stay tuned because it will also be on iTunes and on Android podcast. So once again, thank you so much, Justin. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And we wish you the very best and much continued success.
awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great week, everybody.
You too.
Thank you
See you
so much.
soon.